Alright, today I am reviewing the Rehearsal Season 1. I am going to spoil everything through the end of Season 1, and so if you don't want to be spoiled, you should watch this video after you finish the season. So this show is about a guy named Nathan Fielder who is not really great at improvising or acting in the moment, and so he ends up rehearsing a lot of his interactions and conversations in life. But he takes it to the extreme. Like, he has these complex decision trees of like, if this happens, then I'm gonna do this. He's like, let me recreate the entire environment and the whole feel just to make it as accurate as possible. And at some point he decides, this is working for me, why don't I give other people this experience as well? And so that's what this show is. Throughout the season, we see these several rehearsals of different people just rehearsing different things that they might do in their lives later. The first episode is about a man who is a part of a trivia group, and he has been lying to his friends for years and saying that he has a master's degree when he doesn't. And then there's this man who wants to confront his brother because his brother is not letting him get the inheritance. And then, of course, the major rehearsal that is running through the entire season is this woman who does not have a partner or kids, but wants to rehearse like, hey, what would it be like if I were to have kids? And so they go to extreme lengths to simulate this entire house with actor kids and different situations that might happen after you're having a kid and the kid is growing up. And partway through the season, Nathan is like, hey, I also want to know what it's like to have kids. So let me join in this simulation and live with this random woman in her house and parent these random kid actors. So that's the premise of the show. Nathan Fielder also made another show called Nathan for You, which I have not yet watched, but apparently is very funny. And so I might be watching that at some point. But for now, let's talk about the rehearsal. First of all, what did I like about the show? The first thing that I really liked was just the sheer audacity and meticulousness and the lengths that Nathan goes to recreating these scenarios. The attention to detail, especially in the sets, is amazing. And I kept thinking to myself, how much money did they spend on building this and transporting this one set from one place to the other? It is pretty mind-blowing. And I have to say, there's just some particular moments of WTF in, as far as the lengths that this guy is willing to go. A few that come to mind. One is, I think, actually in the first episode when he is in the pool with the guy who has lied about his master's degree, and they're doing a heart-to-heart sharing about their past or something with each other. And this old random dude swims past, and later Nathan is like, yeah, I planted that guy to come and swim past exactly at that moment because I wanted to get somewhat vulnerable with this guy, but not too much, and so let me get this interruption here. There's just all the shots where Nathan is like, got his like little computer, and he is mapping out these decision trees, and he's kind of like looming over the shoulders of the people who are rehearsing. There's that moment also in the first episode where he's like, okay, this guy, he is not going to be able to keep his mind on the rehearsal if he's losing the trivia game. And so let me find a way to plant the right answers in his mind so that he doesn't know it. And then there's another moment a couple episodes later with the brother and the inheritance where he's like, you know what's missing from this? Real emotion. So let me fake this grandpa dying and have the actor like actually withhold an inheritance just to like make it really real for the rehearsal. I love that moment when they had the store-bought vegetables that they planted in the ground outside the house where he and the woman were taking care of the kid. And then even some of the like smaller details that just are quick flashbys, just nonchalantly thrown in there. Like one of my favorite ones is where he is in the house with the kid and the wife, and he's like, I need to make sure I'm conveying the passage of time. And so he's got this mirror that makes him look old. It is pretty crazy to me. And at some point it all gets very meta. And the episode on the Fielder method where he's bringing in all the actors and then he's reenacting the acting class with more actors and even having an actor play himself so that he can go and see it from another angle. I could go on and on. And one of the things that I just kept thinking about throughout the entire season was, how much of this is actually real? Like, this seems too ridiculous to be true. And maybe we'll never know, but it seems like a lot of it was true, but probably a lot of it was contrived. Either way, I was still like, man, what is this I'm watching? Another thing I did like about the show, I had mixed feelings about, but I think I like it. It's just how different some of the people are. I think a lot of these are people that many would call weird. And to me, they're weird too. I don't like calling people that, but yes, they are. Like the main woman character who is taking care of the kid, just how hyper-religious she is, and at one point I think she was like, Halloween is evil and all of this other stuff. And then the dude who, and I think the second episode was like, yeah, I'll date you, and yeah, I'll join this simulation with you of taking care of this kid for just like a day, and then it's like, oh, I gotta get my sleep, I'm sorry, I'm out. And oh yeah, by the way, I smoke and drive all the time and I don't need a license plate on my car. Just some different people, and honestly, probably the most different or weird of all is Nathan Fielder himself. Just the whole premise of the show is out of the ordinary. great. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on the concept of weirdness. Long story short, I think we're all a little bit weird and just hiding our oddities from everyone else. And I'll probably make a video on this topic at some point. But yeah, part of me likes that this show is just displaying all of this weirdness of people just out there in plain view, and that's almost the point of the show. And yeah, these people might be kind of like far on the, the bell curve, a couple standard deviations away from the mean on many dimensions, but I think that makes it even better. And then finally, there were a couple of more thought-provoking lessons that this show caused me to think about. The first lesson is that you just can't control everything in your life. It's like, even with the perfect rehearsal, with the perfect environment, and having thought through all the different scenarios and permutations of what could happen, you still don't know how it's going to turn out, and you still can't control what's going to happen. And so that's just a useful reminder for me in my own life. And then another lesson was actually that you just can't get to know anyone fully. Like in episode 4 with the Fielder method, Nathan was going to extreme degrees to try to get into the head of this other actor, including going and living in this actor's house, inhabiting his whole life. Even then, he couldn't really get to the point where he really truly knew him. And it's just interesting to think about, because I think the only person who knows me fully and completely is myself. Probably the same for you watching this video. No one else knows you better than you. And there's just a limit there to how well someone can actually know you that I think is fascinating to think about. All right, so what did I not like about the show? The main thing is that I was constantly wondering, are these people being exploited, and do they know how they're going to be portrayed in this TV show? The way it is shown is kind of in a way to make fun of these people or to encourage judgment of these people. Like, one example is everyone I've been talking about so far: Nathan Fielder, the woman who's taking care of the kid, the guy that was gonna take care of the kid with her. This show doesn't really make any of them look that great, but it even goes beyond that to other people. Like, one that sticks out in my mind is actually the friend in the first episode, the friend of the guy who had lied about having a master's degree, and how when the actress who was playing her is deciding how to play her, the basic gist is like, okay, this woman is super annoying, and so let me just play a character that's super annoying and talks too much. But that's a real woman who was part of that show, and I'm sure she signed off the rights, but did she really know that that's how she was going to be portrayed in the show? I don't know. And maybe the most problematic was actually the child actors. As you started getting towards the end of the season, it became clear that the kids didn't always know what was going on or understand the difference between acting and reality, especially that young kid who was getting confused about whether Nathan Fielder was actually his dad or not. It does make me wonder, was this show doing any permanent damage to some of these kids? So I did find myself cringing at a lot of these things that were happening. And so that, plus just the overall weirdness and out there nature of the show, does make it hard for me to really say, like, okay, you should definitely watch this show. I definitely recommend it. But I go back and forth because I think that's also what makes this show so brilliant and groundbreaking. So finally, what did I think about the show overall? Well, for the reasons I just mentioned, it is hard for me to decide what I actually think. At some moments I was loving it, and at some moments I was hating it. And that tension is actually what made the show so compelling for me in the end. So I am going to give the show 4 out of 5 stars because of how compelling and different and out there and groundbreaking that I think it is. Not that I enjoyed it all the time, but it was quite an experience watching. Now, there's also apparently going to be a season 2, which I didn't know was going to happen until after I saw this season. So I will also be watching that. All right, so that's what I wanted to say about the show. I'm really curious to see what other people thought about this show, and so if you have any thoughts, please put them in the comments down below. As always, if you liked this video, hit the like button, which will help others find it, and subscribe for more. Peace.